Well, as Susan just mentioned, Israel now says more than 200 hostages were taken by Hamas and are currently believed to be inside Gaza.
We are just waiting to hear more from the hostages. We are looking for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages.
Among those taken are children, festival goers, elderly people, and soldiers. Some of their loved ones spoke out earlier today.
Bring our children home now. We're waiting for them. We're crying for them. Every night we're crying and pray for them.
They need to get out of there now. Don't negotiate anything. They just need to release them.
On Monday, we received a photo of Yarden, their father, being driven into the Gaza Strip on a motorcycle. He's severely injured in his head. We know nothing. We have no photos of my aunt and uncle. We only received a confirmation that they're not among the dead, and they're probably there.
These hostages are seen as the human shields of this war, and as we close off day 13 with an invasion imminent, an Israeli minister says troops will soon see Gaza from inside. The Atlantic magazine obtained a copy of Hamas's hostage-taking manual that the Israel Defense Forces says was recovered in the aftermath of the October 7th attack. For more on this, I'm joined by The Atlantic's Graeme Wood from Jerusalem. Graeme, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
This handbook you've obtained, I know you won't tell us your sources, but help us understand how you obtained it and verified its authenticity.
Yeah, so this handbook, little bits of it have been circulating online. And the Israel Defense Forces, the Israeli military, was able to authenticate part of it for me. They were not eager to have all of it shared, but I was able to ascertain from them that it was indeed picked up from some remnant of a Hamas force that came into Israel on October 7th. Yes, they say it's real.
Reading your article, there are some passages in your piece that really jump out, where the instructions in the handbook tell the hostage takers and the attackers to kill hostages expected to resist, and the others are to be bound and blindfolded and to use them as human shields. That's very stark when you see it written down, even after knowing what happened on the 7th of October.
Yeah, so much of what happened on the 7th of October was just really surprising, and it looked really haphazard too. But what we see from this manual is that a lot of it was actually carefully thought out, and many of the things that are most brutal about the treatment that Hamas has for hostages were planned well in advance and were not left to chance. That said, there are some aspects of this manual that don't seem to have applied. They seem to have been expecting to dig in Israeli territory, keep hostages, and possibly die in a hail of bullets, possibly kill the hostages, possibly extract concessions. And what they in fact did was take about 200 Israelis into Gaza, which is different from what the manual suggested.
Right. It's almost like the plan was effective in terms of their capacity to commit enormous atrocity, but then something changed along the way. Are there any conclusions we can draw from that instead of it becoming a standoff hostage situation, it became a kidnapping hostage situation?
I think the main conclusion that we can draw, first of all, is that the brutality that we did see on the 7th of October was not something that was just a matter of chance. It was not people getting beyond their writ. It was what they were expected to do. This manual is a manual for brutality. It's a manual without humanity. The other thing, though, that we can learn from this is that what happened on the 7th of October seems to have been more than Hamas expected to be able to do. They thought that they were going to have to dig in and face a military onslaught in different parts of Israeli territory. What in fact they found was almost no military resistance and the ability to commit a bloodbath with almost complete impunity. So what they were expecting to be difficult turned out to be easy, and they were able to bring back, as I say, hundreds of hostages who are in Gaza at this very moment, which I don't think Hamas planned for at all.
The numbers have been updated in the past little while by Israel. They now put it at I believe, 203 hostages that have been taken. What does this manual, this handbook, tell us about what might be in store for the 203 people that Hamas has right now?
Well, it tells us, first of all, that there is very little scruple that Hamas has about killing hostages. It suggests that the hostages be tortured. Compliance should be exacted in pretty much whatever way is necessary. What it doesn't really say, though, is what is expected to be gotten in return for hostages. The Hamas was able to get for one single Israeli hostage, a IDF soldier named Gilad Shalit, about 1,000 Palestinian prisoners released before. Who knows what they can get for 203 hostages, which they currently have in their custody. What we know is that they were expecting before to have probably much smaller groups of hostages in their custody, and to try to negotiate those to swap those people for some kind of concession. And they were prepared to kill them if there was an assault, if there was any attempt to take them back by force.
Right, and this spelled out in your article is the instruction to use them as human shields, to use electric shocks to force compliance, and bluntly to kill the difficult ones. We don't know how many of these 203 people are still alive, but we do know at the handbook and past practice by Hamas is these people should be used as human shields. All of this while the Israeli defense minister is telling his troops, you're going to see the inside of Gaza soon. So how does all of this affect how the IDF may approach this, how the military may proceed when it comes to getting into Gaza?
The IDF, Israel as a whole, they had a calculation in mind before, because they've been through this with some of their citizens being kidnapped and negotiations being worked out. What I don't think that Israel or Hamas ever contemplated was hundreds of people, including civilians, including babies, including elderly men and women, as being part of that calculation. The country of Israel is just staggering with trauma and with confusion about what to do next. There is, I think, a political certainty and a military consensus that Israelis believe that Hamas has to be eradicated, and that has to mean boots on the ground. But there's all these moral calculations that were thought over, wrenching calculations over, again, one person just a few years ago. And so I don't think it's possible for a society to come to conclusions about 203 people this quickly. It's a very, very difficult moment, and I'm not sure how it's going to be resolved.
Yeah, as you say, some of these hostages are very old women and very young children. And it is a grim calculus and a grim situation. I mean, how hopeful is anyone in Israel right now of a positive outcome here, given the likelihood of what will happen once this invasion starts at some point in the days ahead?
I think all of the outcomes that are being contemplated are basically negative. I mean, even the people who are most enthusiastic about an invasion, who think that it's absolutely necessary, will tell you that this could mean the lives of thousands of IDF soldiers, untold numbers of citizens of Palestinians, residents of Gaza. Human life is going to be spent very, very quickly when an invasion happens. And Israel realizes that's going to be painful for all. What I think that they, again, have reached a consensus about is that pain is necessary, because the conditions that allowed for the operations by Hamas of 7th of October simply can't be allowed to continue.
Graeme Wood, staff writer at The Atlantic, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, David.